So, I've recently made a really bad mistake. Our story starts a few days ago when I decided that I wanted to watch something, and so I did what anyone did. I doom-scrolled on Netflix for about 2 hours, and eventually I became so angry, I threw the remote down and I just stomped on it, and it started playing something random, and I said, well, I guess I'm watching this now. So that's how I started watching The Royal Treatment, a masterpiece made by Netflix. It changed my life. I don't remember anything that happened in that film. But it got me thinking. There are so many movies about fictional countries in Europe, and I wondered, what would Europe look like if these countries were real? So I set out on a journey that would take me to some truly dark places. I watched 12 movies about different fictional countries in the Netflix universe. When I started this out, I had to set myself some rules because there were quite a lot of movies about fictional royal countries, so I was like, I better narrow it down somehow. Rule number 1, the country had to have a royal family. Otherwise, I was going to be there for like years doing anime. And god, who would want to be an anime YouTuber? Number 2, it had to be on Netflix. This one was obvious because it's the subscription that I have. Number 3, the country had to be fictional. Now, I'm prefacing this because it may seem very obvious, but so many movies just decide that the Spanish royal family or the English royal family can just like go off and do whatever they want. Which they basically can, but like, you know, we pretend like they can't. Heads up, this does mean that a lot of these films are, Santa-flavored. And if you can't deal with watching a video that contains a lot of Christmas in the middle of July, I'm probably gonna get this video out. Then I suggest that you save this video for another time and set a reminder on your phone, just add it in. So let's get this started with the first country on our list. Slovenia is a coastal country filled with beautiful scenery and mountains and this one village that we see a lot of. I think it's supposed to be the capital, but it looks tiny. It's vaguely Mediterranean, but also all the buildings and the way they dress is all vaguely Germanic Eastern European. And they filmed it in New Zealand, so everyone's got a Kiwi accent, which, in the story, the royal family is in like a lot of debt, and the way that they decide to deal with it is to sell part of the capital to a Texas businessman in exchange for letting him marry his daughter to their son. I think that was the plot. Anyway, a hairdresser turns up out of nowhere and is like, hey, you know what's cool? Not beating up poor people. And the prince is like, oh my god, that's the best idea. How did you ever come up with that? I don't know, I'm from Brooklyn. I can't remember where in New York she was from.
Of 183rd Street.
Anyway, they're clearly like super libertarian, so I'm going to say that this is like a fictional Liechtenstein, because as we all know, Liechtenstein isn't real. And it's going right here next to Italy. Moving on, it's time for... Hudgens. What happened? I mean, did they like bind you into making 3 of these? Or do you enjoy talking to yourself for this amount of time? On reflection, after watching all of the movies, I really enjoyed the Princess Switch. And the Princess Switch 2, switched again. And the Princess Switch 3, and the quest to find the Star of Peace. Country's called Belgravia, but it's not the area of London, it's a whole-ass country. It's kind of Germanic, Eastern European sort of as area. And the series also features another country called Montenegro. Montenegro is probably just meant to be Montenegro, which is here, so I'm just gonna put another one next to it. On a side note about the Princess Switch movies, was there a revolution in Belgravia? Because the Belgravian royal family spent all of their time in Montenegro after the second one. And it becomes concerning, like, why aren't you going back to your country? Don't you have matters of state to attend to? Because of this, I like to assume that they've had a coup and Belgravia is now a socialist paradise. That's why I've marked it like this on the map. Now we're gonna go to a very important country. It's The Prince and Me follows the story of a journalist who carries on to become the princess of a country after breaking into their house disguised as a nanny. No, as a babysitter, as a... hold up. Yeah, as like a tutor sort of a person, and then falls in love with the prince, who's a Lothario. It's truly surprising that Belgravia is the one that fell to the socialist revolution, because honestly, things are not okay in Aldova. Their former king hides an incredibly important proclamation in a bauble. Like, just in a Christmas bauble. And I don't mean like a little important, I mean incredibly important to the plot. I don't think that any of you are going to watch it, but it's so important to the plot and to the success of his country, and he just hides it in a Christmas bauble. Also in the third one, there's like an actual curse that the family is under. So magic is real, is what Netflix is telling me. In the third one, we also meet a country called Penglia, and we don't know much about the country because they really do not spend any time building up information about it, so I'm just going to assume it's here. It's rich, so that's why. Also, please remember, this is the Aldovian castle. It will become very important later in this video. Our next movie is The Prince and Me. Now, this movie doesn't technically count, and that's because he's the Prince of Denmark, because despite what all Americans and most Europeans believe, Denmark is actually a real country, so I guess we should add Denmark back onto this map. How many of you realized that Denmark wasn't on that map? Be honest in the comments. But I really wanted to talk about this film series because it's a series. The first movie ends 6 times. There are 6 different endings in the film, and then, like, they just, like, decided to have all of them. Every single time you're like, okay, we're done. Oh, no, okay, cool. Okay, we're done. No, okay, cool. But then something else weird happens. There are 3 more, and every single one of them, less and less people from the original cast turn up, until by the 3rd one, there is literally nobody who was in the first film. All of the characters are the same, but for some reason, for some reason, they're really bad films, but like, they made 4 of these, and no one told them to stop. Someone should have told them to stop. But that does technically bring us to 12. So now we can look at our map. Look at that. Aren't you proud of that? So all's to say is that... But the video isn't done. Of course not, you fools! I wasn't going to make a video where I watched 12 rom-coms and not have a liar reveal trope. It was I. I was the liar. I wasn't going to half-ass this. I don't half-ass things. Actually, that's a lie. I half-ass things quite a lot. So no, I didn't watch 12 films. I watched 38. In fact, originally, I was going to watch a lot more than that. And that's because whenever I started researching this, for every one movie I searched, I found another 3. Because Hallmark has no chill. Because of course I was going to watch the Hallmark specials. I may have gone too far on this. I was in an Ouroboros of fictional royal families. I was living in a fractal of princes who didn't know what they wanted to be, of clumsy girls from the city and or small town. It was a nightmare, but I suffered it. So in the end, I stuck to 24 of the ones that I thought were the most absurd, and here we go. Princess for Christmas. The country is called Castleberry. It is somewhere in Eastern Europe. And they seem to have hired the exact same architects as the Aldovans, so let's just put them right next to Aldovia. A Crown for Christmas. It's called Windshire. It's not really described in the film that much, but it seems to be pretty mountainous. And all of the architecture is kind of Slavic German-esque, so we're going to put it here. Christmas with a Crown. Now, I couldn't actually remember the country. This movie passed through me like butter. I was already deep in the throes of depression at this point, and I can't watch it again. It was a lot. It was vaguely Scottishy. We're just going to say a little section of Scotland became independent. There. A Royal Winter. This one's called Calpurnia, which honestly is the most unique name since Lavernia. And they both end in "-ia". Yeah. Unfortunately, Calpurnia's name is basically the only unique thing about it, because that's just Nürstein. I'm sure someone who's German will correct my pronunciation. However, the way that it's presented and talked about, it's super Italian for some reason, so I was going to put it in the Dolomites, but instead I'm just going to make all of Bavaria free now. Congratulations, Bavaria, how does it feel?
Mein Schweinfei, es ist doch nicht wahr, dass der Orchkatzel schwarf.
Wow, that was a lot. A picture-perfect Christmas. This one is just straight up England, but I don't like giving things to England, so instead I'm going to give something to Wales. A Royal in Paradise. This was the first one that I watched that wasn't set at Christmas, and it felt so good. It was like a breath of fresh air after I had been drowning in salt water filled with glitter and somehow snow, and Santa was always there. Sometimes Santa was even real. Maybe I should do a video breaking down all of the lore in the Santa verses of Hallmark movies. That would be fun. He called his country Torovia, or it's written like this. He is very wealthy and able to solve basically all of his problems with money, which would be a great thing. Because of that, I decided that they should go next to Luxembourg. If you don't know why they should go next to Luxembourg, Google Luxembourg's GDP. Christmas at the Palace. The country is called Synovia. It's Mediterranean, but it's also in mountains, so I'm going to put it in the Dolomites. It's either that or it's part of Greece. A Royal Christmas. This one is just really on the nose with its naming conventions. The country's called Claudinia because they're all clods, and it is vaguely Central European. So I'm giving it vaguely Central European. Royally Ever After. Now this one is called St. Ives, which is a real island that is part of the UK. So I guess that they had a really strong independence movement and also super loved royalty. The Royal Matchmaker. Oh look, it's our old friend, Aldovian architecture. Let me just put them right here next to them as a little treat. Once Upon a Prince. This one is called Cambria, which is an old Latin word for Wales, which is surprising because I didn't think that Hollywood knew where Wales was or that it existed. Unfortunately, the architecture is all super French, and I think that they speak French a couple of times, so I was going to put it in the Alps, but to split the difference, I'm going to put it in Breton. That's Breton with a G for anyone who's American, which is part of France, but it's also Celtic. So, Royal Hearts. Oh. Parcel came for me. Royal Hearts. Royal Hearts stars two fictional countries that both have royal families. They both seem to be somewhere in central Italy, so I guess the Vatican gets some new neighbors. Moving on, we've got a lot of ground to cover. At this point in my absolute death binge, I was starting to come out of the spiral. I was feeling a sort of enlightenment. I knew the scripts before they started saying them. I knew the words that they were going to say in the bored, monotone, flat acting of someone who has no director. What? The king is dead? My summer prince. Once again, it's no longer Christmas and I can breathe a little bit easier. This one just kind of looked like California, so I don't care. I'm gonna put it next to the Netherlands. Once Upon a Holiday. That's Nürstein again. I guess Bavaria had like a civil war. What do you say about that, Bavaria?
Die ganzen Sapreisen mit dem Gefreckel und den ganzen Kasperln, da irgendwas zu machen.
A Royal New Year. This one was straight up the UK again, and I'm running out of places in the UK that have independence movements. Congrats, Yorkshire. A home for a royal heart. This one really threw me through a loop because it's not a movie about falling in love with a prince, though that does happen. It's really a movie about property development and buying a home that really speaks to you. There is an unfortunate thing about this movie, though, which is that the country is Moldova, which is a real country. And safest to say that it has a complicated history of people telling them what to do. Again, if you want to know more about that, I'm not a history channel. Go find an actual history channel. A Winter Princess. They don't actually name this country, so I'm just gonna give it to Liechtenstein because Liechtenstein needs a break. Except they really don't. A Royal Queen's Christmas. That is the full title. It's so hard to say for no apparent reason. It's Montenegro. It's impressive how many of these don't have names. How many times girls follow princes back to a small European country and they never mention the name. It's honestly astonishing. It's stupid. I've watched so many of these films. God, I've watched so many of these films. A Jolly Good Christmas. We're really running out of parts of the UK to chop off, so I guess Cornwall can become independent. I'll even let them call themselves Celtic. Just don't get any fucking ideas. Everyone hates you, Cornwall. One Royal Holiday. This one takes place entirely in the US, and we never see any part of the European country that this royal family is supposed to be a part of, and they just go and stay at this random woman's B&B. It's truly astonishing. They meet at an airport, and he's like, I'll come stay with your family. That sounds like a great idea. Don't mind me that it may cause an international incident. For goodness sake, Belgravia just went through a bloody revolution. Things have gotten worse there. Don't worry, could be worse, could be Bavaria. They call the country Galwick, so I don't know where to put that. I'm gonna give it to Denmark. And with that, we're down to the last Hallmark movie that I watched. It's called A Prince Christmas. Not a Christmas Prince, or a Prince's Christmas, a Prince Christmas. The prince is Christmas, is what I'm understanding from that. Grammar is important, guys. Stay in school. The country is called Belmont, and despite the name, it is nowhere near Wallachia. All of the buildings are incredibly Swiss, and that tells me that it's going to be right here. But we've done it. I've been through so much, and for what? What have I done? I've watched 38 bloody movies, and all I've got to show for it is this map. What do you mean that was 36? 12 plus 20? I'm sorry. Just like The Prince and Me, this video has got multiple endings, and none of them really make any sense because I watched 38 rom-coms about fictional royal families. I have suffered. I know every single script to these movies, and it has hurt me, which is why I needed a palate cleanser, which is why I needed something that was incredible. No, I needed something that was a masterpiece. I needed to return to that land that I call my home. Of course, what else am I talking about except Princess Diaries? Genovia is an incredible country that seems to encapsulate many different cultures, from French to Spanish to Italian, and also they have this one presenter person who seems to be from Scotland who's just wandering around. They export pears and nothing else, so I'm left to assume that they basically get all of their money from laundering taxes for the wealthy. Which fits, because they are based off of Andorra, and the royal family is based off of the Monaco royal family. Their names are even super similar. So I sat down, and I put on the Princess Diaries films, both of them. And as I sat there and I watched them, I realized, holy fuck, I've watched 38 of these films. I realized that it doesn't matter how many films about fictional royalty I have watched. There is only one true queen. And that queen is Mia Thermopolis Rinaldi, Queen of Genovia. Also in the royal treatment, they say Genovia is real, so I'm going to take that as confirmation that everything I've said in this video is completely true with absolutely no caveats. Now stand for our national anthem.